Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. Today we're going to be continuing on with this week's theme of special selections. As we do on the first week of every month, I finally get through the special selection list, which is where people tell me exactly what they want me to check out, and I do it. Today's comes at us from Christopher Stevens. Really want you to check out that Epica song Still, which happens to be Serenade of Self-Destruction. Says whenever you can. I took that a little literally. It has been quite some time since this was requested, and I finally got to it. So yeah, let's get around to this one. I will say, to start off with, the title of the song just makes me think of Megadeth. Symphony of Destruction. And that's the only thing that's going through my head, like, Serenade of Destruction. Do 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 do. Like, that's all I could think of. It's obviously probably not. We've checked out Epica. I kind of know what I'm in store for, and it is not. It is not Megadeth. But it kind of cracks me up every time. Every time. Even when it was first requested, that was the first thing that went through my head hearing that. Reading that title. Alright. Making a lot of noise. Alright, let's get to this. Epica's Serenade of Self-Destruction. 10-minute. Get comfy, grab some water, and let's listen to some good music. I love the little like tinge of darkness in the song so far. Kind of expected given the title though. Nice little inverse. We got the orchestral stingers in the rock bands, and the orchestra running the melody, which is really cool. Nice little run up there. Heavy staccato there. Full choir? Or is this those two people that said at the beginning? Sonora Mark. Nice little floor for him to growl under, and then you get these nice runs afterwards. Nice little of handing off the melody. Nice little embellishment there on the forever. Very nice. I love that. nice operatic vocal. Very wide, very powerful. I like those flourishes in the drum. Seeing a lot of that staccato rhythmic element in instruments now. Once again, we see melody trade-off. See, there's those drum flourishes. We've got straight eights going, and then they put in some 16ths there. On beat 3, I think that is. Real good time to rein it in and kind of simplify the song a little bit. Give the listener a chance to relax. Yes. We had a chord, mode shift. I don't know if I can think of that. And I've mentioned before, I love the flavor of this chord mode. It is just gorgeous. And I expect to see a lot of those slides. Yeah, those little half note slides, it just fits with this this feeling so well. I really dig that guitar line. They took something rather simple, basically writing a 0, writing the open, and then doing a nice flourish at the end, and just really putting a ton of ornamentation in there to make it interesting all the way through. That offbeat accent on the beginning of both of these sentences.
It is absolutely, totally well understood to be associated with suicide and violence and homicide.
interesados en asistir a los festivales
Interesting return to the final chorus, I'm assuming. Bringing the choir back to finish this out. All right, that was a very fast 10 minutes. And that's a good thing. Geez, where do I even start with this? I guess we'll start with some of the good, and then we'll work to some of the stuff I kind of wish was a little better. All right, well, we'll do a little bit of both here. Overall, to me, this is fairly refreshing. Not in the fact that we haven't had classical metal. Is that what this is? When we kind of combine classical elements with that operatic sound and more of a 90s rock sound. I think that's classical metal. I could be wrong there. But we've had Epica on the channel before. We've had Nightwish on the channel before. These are and I've mentioned before also that I've listened to a single album by After Forever. So it's not that I've never heard this style of music before, but I think it's refreshing for the channel. We saw a lot of really cool texture things going on. We saw some interesting things with melody trade-offs going on, and importantly to me, I got to figure out the name of this chord. It's more of a chordal mode, but it's that like Middle Eastern flair. Um, maybe, I don't know. Anyways, it was the section where I mentioned specifically that there is a chordal mode change, right? And I love that sort of sound, the way that those note relationships work together. There's a name for this specific chord, and I can never remember it as much as I love this sound. Just the overall atmosphere of this specific chordal mode, it sounds phenomenal, and I kind of hate that I cannot remember the name of it. But yeah, so that any song that introduces that sort of sound, that sort of atmosphere, especially with the way that they introduced a ton of slides in the vocal work. If you look at any of the vocal work that came before in the cleans, there were not a lot of slides. It's a lot of hitting the pitch that you want. Maybe embellishing it a little bit, where you kind of like, sing above it, sing below it, and then settle on it. You get this nice little run. But we didn't see any of these slides, and they're all half step slides, and they sound so good in this mode, and it's just, oh, that is my jam right there. Mixing that with the metal sound, it's always good. It's always good. I never heard a bad instance of this. Granted, I also don't hear it in metal often, so I don't have a very large pool of data that I'm referencing this from. But in my experience, my limited experience, it always sounds good. So I want to go back to the beginning though. We started off with a really cool thing that we haven't really seen too much when we look at bands that introduce orchestral instruments to the metal mix. And a lot of the times I've mentioned in the past that bands will introduce orchestral sounds for that texture. They won't necessarily use the orchestral instruments in the way that they are typically used in classical music, but they'll utilize them for sort of that power or agency or regalness that comes with, tubas and oboes and violins and just that overall sound, right? It's more about adding that flourish, that texture to your music rather than actually, writing music that would typically be written for these instruments. And part of that is using the orchestral instruments with orchestral stingers. It sounds good. It always sounds good. It adds emphasis and power to whatever section it's in, and punchiness. Obviously, I mean, it's a stinger. It's going to be punchy. You got these very short notes, usually played loudly with a wide breadth of more like powerful instruments. You get the sharpness from your contrabasses and your cellos and your violins, and you get the sort of majestic elements from your brass, like your tuba and your trumpets. So to hear the inverse of that was very interesting. We had the violin part, there might have been more strings, and we're going to call it the strings. The string section was playing the melody, and it was more of a metal riff. It was uh, eighth note, 16th note, just kind of shredding out a little bit. And the orchestral stingers were being played by the electric guitars and bass. And that was just really cool to hear, just to hear the opposite of that. They included the orchestral instruments, but didn't use them for the stingers. And we got sort of a different sound, a different texture to that same idea that we've heard many times before. Um, I was kind of hoping this is. I guess we're gonna touch on this later when I actually get into some of the stuff that I wanted a little bit more of. But that opening, that opening had me hoping for a little bit more as far as the orchestral sections went. The next thing that was really cool was, I think, was a full choir. Well, full, what is a full choir? If you have 8 people, is that full? If you have 40, is that full? I mean, we have 100-person choirs. Does that mean 40s aren't full? I don't know. But we have a fairly large choir. There's at least 4-ish voices in there. I'm not sure if that is the 2 singers, Simone and Mark, and if they are just, backing tracking, if they're doubling up their voices to achieve this choir effect. Maybe they're using digital modulation on it. Maybe they went and got a full choir. I don't know, but I like it. It adds nice counterpoint to the precise singular cleans that I assume Simone is providing, and the growls that I assume Mark is providing. It has a third vocal texture, and I think it was really cool for them to go with a highly staccato, sort of almost like orchestral singers all over again with the choir. And it reminded me a lot of the choirs that are present in stuff like Greek tragedies. Um, it kind of gave me that notion where Mark and Simone might have been characters in the story, and the choir is sort of the narrator. And I love that flair. I don't know if that's what really happened, but it's just really cool. It's not often that we get 3 distinct vocal textures to a song. Even when we've looked at bands in the past where we've had multiple vocalists, something like was it Invalids had 3 or 4 vocalists. Um, they're usually all fairly similar, and it's all about the harmony that's going on, the differences in the notes, not the differences in their timbres. So I really enjoyed that, how we had that here. We had the textural differences, and not only just how they have different textures at different times, but also how they overlap. They did provide harmonies and background vocals to each other, and we got to see some of the contrast in there. I don't know if they do that every time, but I love it. I hope they do. I hope they have that choir a lot of the time. It's awesome. I can't say anything else. I just love it. A lot of the guitar work, the drumming, the actual musical elements were pretty cool. I'm not gonna say that there was anything that completely stuck out to me as just being extraordinary above the rest. But I'm also not going to say that it was completely inoffensive or uh, predictable or anything like that. It was above that, right? I wasn't bored by it, but I also wasn't blown away by it either. So I think it sits in that nice pocket of just being very well done. Nothing wrong with that, just being good, right? Not everybody can be great, and at least it's not inoffensive or predictable. I think that's an easy way to kill a song, especially a good song, is to have predictable melody lines. So, yeah, like I said, the musical work was it worked well for what was going on. Um, After we did a couple of back and forths on verse and chorus, and then we hit the slow section. And I loved this part because it introduced my favorite section, but also it was a nice contrast. We really got to sort of reduce a lot of the layering that we had going on. The chorus, like I said, we had we had the cleans, we had the choir behind it, we had the guitar and the bass. I want to say there were some strings in there. The chorus is heavily layered. It was really nice just to strip that back and get Simone's voice, especially switching to the operatic style. So once again, we got a little bit different. I already feel it right now. What I've said and what I'm going to say, I'm heavily focused on the vocals, but I think it's the strongest part of this song. Like I said, the instrumental work is good. It suits everything. It's fine, but there is nothing that really stood out to me as being amazing. But I can talk for days about the vocal trio that's going on between the growls, the female cleans, and then the choir, and how they all just work together. And now we have a fourth one. Technically, it's not a different singer, but we have a different vocal style in Simone. I guess I should talk about Mark. I didn't like it. So going on into the uh no hate to Mark with those growls. I guess they work well as contrast. They were just not growls that I enjoyed. We did amazing growl week a couple months ago, I guess. And growls are okay. I'm still not completely on board with them, but this specific growl just it was missing whatever that I enjoyed in some of the other stuff I've listened to. I don't know. It could have been the mix, it could have been the way he growls. It did not work for me. It felt flat, especially compared to all the other vocal stuff that was going on. I don't think the growl should be removed, and it's not my music. It's not made for me. I don't have to appreciate it. But I think a different kind of growling style would have suited it better as far as my tastes go. I don't think we needed to replace them with male cleans. I don't think we need to replace them with fries or anything higher. I think we can stick to the growl style. Just something about this one, it felt flat to me. Like I said, compared to the power in Simone singing both of her styles and the power in the choir, which kind of cheats because there's a lot of people there, which adds to its width. But the growls against all that just came off a bit flat. I don't know if it needed more vocal compression, if it needed more sustained air pressure, if it needed, I don't know what it needed. Maybe it was just a mix thing. I don't know. But it just felt so weak and lacking strength compared to everything else that it was, you know, singing against. It was the weak link in the vocal chain. Um, so I don't know. Those are my thoughts. I could be completely wrong. Maybe everybody loves them. I don't know. We're gonna move on though to that middle section. Like I said, Simone switches off to an operatic style, and we get sort of more of a vulnerable, stripped back section. I loved it. It was gorgeous, beautiful. Every part of it. Just the way that the melodic lines were contrasting some of the kind of moving parts underneath it. I don't really remember hearing much that was counterpoint. It was mostly melodic lines over chord progressions or melodic lines over like a guitar lead. They're not really chord progressions, but they're not really melodies to be a counter melody either. Like riffs don't work as counter melody. they're not chord progression, but they're not melody either. So, I don't really know where to put that. I guess we can just put it in like sound floor. I guess we can pop that in the sound floor category. Um, but yeah, like it was all just working real well together, sound beautiful, and then we shifted to the new mode, and it gets kind of that I don't know. That other type of feel. It's very not it's very much not the typical Western chordal colors that we see in a lot of Western music, including rock, metal, jazz, blues. A lot of classical music is Western. Uh, Hip hop. I don't know. To me, it's very much like Western Asian or like Middle East kind of sound. And like I said, I love that chordal color. It's beautiful. I love the way the notes dance around each other and the way that she transitioned from singing pretty much the note on the spot and just kind of hitting every note to having these half step slides. Just it just fits so well with what's going on in the music and the way that the chord progression has changed, and the whole thing is just gorgeous, and we should have never left it. But we did. It did not last long. We went and had some pretty cool like metal sections as far as the music went, and then we had a little bit of a build up that went into the final chorus, and then we kind of ended with a nice acoustic arrangement. I think it was guitar and violin, maybe piano was in there. I don't know. It was a nice little send off. It felt a little out of place with a lot of what had just happened, but it works. It was a nice little way to send that off. I enjoyed it. Um, what did not work for me though, it's not so much that it didn't work for me. I just wish it was better. Like I think this song is a 7 or 8, and it could easily have been a 9 or a 10 if this one thing had happened. I mean, it's like I said before, this is all completely my bias, what I like. I'm not saying that the song would be improved by doing any of this, just that I would like it better. Which is kind of selfish, but that's why we're here. You guys are listening to my thoughts about this song. These are my thoughts I'm about to tell you. There's too much riffage going on. And that ties back into my counterpoint thing, where there's a lot of guitar riffs going on that are very metal oriented, and that's fine, but they're cyclical. We have a lot of 4 bar phrases going on in the guitar work and even the string work. A lot of this song is built on one melody sitting on top of riffs. And I just really wish we had seen some more melodic ideas come out of the guitar work that wasn't cyclical. I would have loved to see. Well, I mean, to be fair, even the vocal work is cyclical. It's still riff based. The words themselves are changing, but the rhythm and the notes picked for them are not. A lot of this song is riff based. Even the outro, and I was really hoping this wasn't true because it was a fairly long melodic idea, but right before we really faded out, it looped back on itself. And I think it was an 8 bar uh, riff, and that's kind of what confused me because it was double the size of most of the other stuff we've listened to, and I was really hoping it wasn't. But yeah, it ended up repeating itself. And I think that's just one of the things that they could have done better. If you're going to stick to riffs, because the thing is, we went through a lot of cool sections in the middle. I mean, the beginning, we kind of danced back and forth on the verse and chorus, but when we got to the middle, we had the operatic section, and then the like Middle Eastern section, and then the heavy rock section, and that was a lot of movement that we had that we didn't see prior to it, and we didn't really see after it either. But the thing is that there wasn't much changing in those sections either, and I just really wish we had seen even just some embellishments. Play the same riff, but on beat 3, put a little, hammer on in there. Just change it up a little bit. The drummer was doing some of this cool stuff, uh, adding embellishments into their work in the chorus. But unfortunately, it was part of the riff. So it was a little more interesting than not doing anything, but at the same time, it was still, you know, predictable. It was still the same thing every four. I guess that would be like every two bars because the drum pattern was not super long. But I don't know. I don't normally say this about most bands. It's not something I typically critique people on is repetition, unless it is just super repetitious. And this is not. This actually has some melodic direction and movement, and the overall composition has direction and movement to it. Um, but like I said, it's something that would have taken it from a 7 or 8 to a 9 to a 10, just because there's a lot of really good ideas in here. The whole song as a whole has direction and movement. We see these changing parts. It's just that each part is holding it back just a little bit. And I would have liked to see that variation existing within the parts and not just variation in the parts themselves. And I don't know when this came out. The song, I mean, it was uploaded to a non official YouTube page, but this video specifically is from 2012, so it's probably from before that. I'm sure Epica has grown and matured in their composition since then. Um, I mean, like I said, we're already almost 10 years to when this video was uploaded, and it was probably came out before then. So maybe it was earlier in their career. I don't know. But that was probably my only thing. It's not like it was holding it back. It's not like I disliked the song because it was riff based. I just think it would have elevated it even more. We had classical elements in there, we had classical instrumentation in there. I would have just liked a little bit of classical composition style in there as well. So I think that about wraps it up. I guess I can touch on the melodic trade offs, which happened a lot at the beginning, but I didn't really hear too much near the end. We saw some really cool things happening in the growls versus the guitars, where the guitars would kind of ride the open string or ride a pedal. I'm going to say ride a pedal note. I'm not 100% sure it was a open string, but they would ride a pedal note while the guy was growling, and he would growl for the first 75% um, of the pattern of the riff, and then he would end his line, and the guitar would do a little cool flourish in the last quarter, and they would cycle this over and over, and you get this nice growl 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 guitar, growl 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 guitar, and like this nice little trade-off there. We saw it in, I think it was the verse or pre-chorus, I'm not really sure at this point. um, but we had trade-offs between the clean vocals of the female and then the male growls, and they kind of overlap sometimes, where the growl would hold over to the first beat that the cleans would come in. So you get these nice little overlaps momentarily between the trade-offs. Very cool stuff there. But like I said, I don't really remember, either it wasn't present or I wasn't paying attention to it after that point. I guess it'd be really cool if that's kind of an overarching motif that appears throughout the song. That would have been pretty cool, but I didn't specifically listen for it after that point, unfortunately. So yeah, 33 minutes on a 10-minute song. I guess that's not too bad. And I don't really think I have much else to talk about. Like I said, overall, I enjoyed the song. It's not 100% my cup of tea, but it is a nice little refresher from a lot of the stuff we typically have on here. It's like light prog. We did move through some aspects. It kind of keeps the attention going as we're progressing through the song, but it also does kind of lean a little closer to some more traditional heavy metal from the 90s and 2000s, as far as the guitar work and drum work go. So it's a weird mix. I kind of like it, but it's not necessarily anything I would go out of my way to listen to, which I think is just kind of where I am with this classical metal as a whole. Like I've mentioned, I've listened to After Forever in my teens, but we've listened to Nightwish and Epica before, and neither one of them really grabbed my attention to the point where I had to go out and buy their albums. And that's kind of where this is sitting too. I enjoyed the song. I think it's a really cool combination of ideas, but it's nothing I need to go out and buy immediately. So, yeah, those are my thoughts though. This is your chance to let me know that I was wrong. which you've probably already done if you thought I did. My comments are probably filled already. But no, on serious note, hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you thought of Epica's Serenade of Self-Destruction. Let me know if you also thought of Megadeth when you heard that title. You can let me know if I'm wrong. You can let me know about your thoughts, how you felt about it, anything you want to do. Put it in the comments. And above the comments section is the description box if you'd like to check out any links adjacent to the channel, such as the Patreon, my Twitter, or videos that YouTube has blocked. All those links are in there. There's a few more. Just go and check it out, see if anything interests you. And yeah, I guess that wraps this one up then. I'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC, with the last special selection for this week as far as the theme goes. But Saturday, we'll be back with more special selection because that's what we do on weekends, right? So we've had 9 back to back just because of last weekend, this weekend, and the theme. But that's good because that means we're getting through this list. Tomorrow, the premium list is done. Everybody rejoice. All right. So, like I said, I'll be back at 5 p.m. tomorrow. You can check out more of this. We have a pretty interesting one, I think, for tomorrow. Let me see this real quick. Oh, actually, I don't know if it's interesting because I have no idea what that is. I guess it could be interesting. I don't know what the band. I've never heard this band before. So, no spoilers though. You got to come back tomorrow to see it. 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC. Until then, you guys stay safe out there. Keep being awesome and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.